is AI bubble. AI powered investment are diverse software renewables are prioritized over nuclear in 25. When data center predicted comes to be 12% of all electricity companies are building that nuclear startups, but someone will make AI more efficient, faster than new plants. Investment hydrogen key software investment can have demand for AI cost pressure. Increase safer vessel flow to tech rapidly scalable today. Renewables fit the app. Succumbs to lobbyists that are nuclear Romano 25. The hype cycle of nuclear renaissance and have been regular announced funding through the 2005 EV Act offered the expectation sales increased by 22%, projecting 1,000 reactors, reducing the increase in nuclear energy fueled by AI-driven data center demand. Companies are not giving up. DC doesn't change demand. Reckless funding pops a bubble around 25. Energy efficiency is better than the largest energy production. Vehicles and more AI power con like this back bubble and bust. Many use no product, no design, no tech. These won't even present a product in 20, 40, or 50 billable. Severity matters most of the man 25. Big tech on takes the $1 trillion for power AI powered industry. The once in a generation investments for you to keep up volumes ahead from the power industry point to an AI bubble. The bubble wasn't big enough. Drop starts panic leading to economic contagion. Given the market's dependence on tech, any pullback will crater the industry decline, causes war jump 24. Statue econ so increases diversion economy by exploding identity. Scholars attribute power suppression to domestic problems, Russian invasion, China that as the came because the economies went downhill. Extinction starts from 15 years directly to loss of atmosphere tornadoes and gravitational effect take place of the atmosphere earth becoming definite. Then its quality is strong. Like a reconciliation has now unity key weaver to 95 Republicans work through issues of communication here working with White House and open group and laying out parameters Republicans to reconcile differences, hitting ground running with Republicans working through details of conservation and will be enough to the usual time for reconciliation. Wrap up Memorial Day present leading towards current policy to succeed. A hype nuclear is alienating. Denny 24. Courtesy be redirected more favorable nuclear to Jarvis Jones while the space backlash ability and the AI hyperscaler Trump's conversion to stand for this coalition. The real horse trading priorities hasn't begun yet. The anti-lobby with the investment Republicans might prefer subsidies steered away. It creates divides for 2025. Despite trying to now hinges on partisan risk Capitol Hill eyeing small actions on the misgivings and raging Trump opposite them to refuse the big ticket items like forbidding items to the loss of pivotal nuclear boosters, carbon dioxide freshmen, and others believe their nuclear project shouldn't rely on government billion receipts. Increased funding would likely cover appropriations and gave negotiators to fail to pass spending bill. Spending concerns come first. Super 15 Republicans are really defending attack for a serious push on nuclear enthusiasts. Rhetorical, their love is driven by animosity towards renewables, but conservatives hate spending a lot more. Markets vote interest a year-long defense CR that collapses starts in interest escalation will like 20 public CRBs. New stars on critical rulings that not force use behind adversaries. You wouldn't be able to run the threats and China's activities bring Taiwan agriculture ships. Sure, navigating Australia, the war games here, New Zealand, to trust funding when we know authorizing 260 new programs. Required to outcome China cause of deterring failed fighting a war stop would be unprecedented. That goes nuclear tactics 23. China integrating existing strategy. Thus, firewall conventional nuclear states are recognized superiority in nuclear superiority to have to disappear. Rest was evident in Taiwan. The use of calm to miscount China refusing to accept escalation usefully forcing nuclear exchange only stopping China would be superior capabilities. Contention 3 is implementation. Number 1, Trump sabotages himself. Meyer 25 Doge attacking the key backs over nuclear LPO for long-term financing. Trump uses boosting nuclear LPOs and key for every new project. This goes addition to Doge have the staff have as resign LPO could lose so much it can no longer support nuclear video undermine monitor parties depends on specialized staff and institution. Trump playing a rare window of opportunity for argument turn on nuclear 2 overruns and deceptive estimates for 1 for use determine the first at some more reflex obvious for your challenge with the NES more than rational window governments would invest another time one cannot trust estimates to study examine 180 or 175 exceeded the initial budget on average 117%. They took on average 64% longer 3 injunctions out of 25 even with the projects that jurisdiction every 4 minute court can stop them by issuing injunctions developed within the power of land between the two inevitably aggressive injunctions make American energy power requires to get canceled and investors give up for Texas versus NRC code 25 cases determine the waste of storage and legitimacy of your ties uncertainty but Hamburg expansion ruling is that NRC will change how focus can be broadened and reach agency of it's all about the NIMBY decision expected in June at Seekers and Mercury's nuclear industry according to Quesada 25 reports suggest justice are leading Texas way 5 incentives 1 golden parachutes Vermont 24 and 3 investors rewarded the project is executed the nuclear business was differently examining the growing reassured payments automatically trigger in case of sales executives further construction even have been painfully obvious that the partially grossly over budget B corruption and independently structural barriers for 23 money has dark side excess in Illinois and no higher risk of bribery leading to substitute plea yielding lack of honesty breathtaking votable under construction that when they cannot deliver reduce losses to natural base including heavy forging capacity decades ago see politics Vermont 24 officials mobilized arguments with repetition sincerity dubious history Russia's side by time will be different by the time trial while young parents leaders of the time of investment decision and mutual retirement private sector roles lobbying companies for bureau politics and from 21 from all the no action act on public self-interest developed rationally even this Chinese for bureau project regardless of efficacy agents become capture lobbying inevitably deteriorate for significant initial policy propaganda skeptical rewinding before every week Google doesn't article new era nuclear ending to solve climate.
I'm sorry. Cut at solve climate. So from honest assessments onward wasn't
Sorry, so
solve climate from the last card from Romana, cut from honest assessments to the end of the case. That's one card.
Okay, order is AvNeg, TOC is set. Every card that I'm reading is in there, there's some analytics. It's all TOC and finals depending on what application.
No, the link was used for the
Oh, I see.
that wasn't original.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I sent a new word. Sorry, I should explain. recording is finished. Half neg. The neg will be C1, C2. Analytics are not in there, but cards are. Alright. Okay. Good. Alright, everyone already? Perfect. Condition one is build up the U.S. nuclear bullets filling that Dodge 24. Relying on to talk about great recent values within the United States, less committed to deterrence, plutonium bits critical to modernization, and NSA currently cannot reach the scale. Modernization efforts are underway, that's Keating. 25. Wars projected Utah, China, Littleville, arms control is dead. U.S. admits a $1.5 trillion effort upgrades for the nuclear triad. We aren't moving fast enough for 2024. NSA produced more already pit. First time in decades since by difficulty making progress. Quota of 80 per year remains impossible to meet. Investment solved Liberal War 07. Plutonium liquid and nuclear energy strategy byproducts for uranium energy. Engineers find methods to reduce nuclear waste using proliferation resistant technology. Production scales up. Gap 25. 450 assets at NSA reached 60% insufficient plan. Explicit infrastructure subject to budgetary constraints. Continuing resolution. Create uncertainty by which project will be funded. The brink is now at probably 24. Assuring that is imperative for non-full abuse must commit to modernization. Any delay result in risk nuclear capabilities. Necessary friction deterrence. Otherwise proliferation is the imminent specter. 17. Japan and South Korea pursue weapons of conflict. U.S. security aerospace with China, North Korea, Taiwan, China, Saudi Arabia. Seek nuclear arms. Turkey increasingly attack Republican Polish. Already signaled interest. Proxy wars will ensue. Number 17. Proxy wars immune to deterrence nuclear premium. Irregular wars of conflict. Proxy war fire. Perception of risk involved in direct confrontation. Mad love due to use chance of survival. It's preferred to guarantee regime loss because they will always face retaliation to the zeros. The impacts on a number of their arguments. As for 22. Bad works because both sides believe nuclear weapons will be met with escalation. Moreover, modernization increases arms control as cost of 21. Arms control incorporating Russian and West factor modernization key and leverage modernization pressure states to participate in negotiations. That's key. NYC 23. Arms control talks of one nuclear confrontation China's expansion in the U.S. or Russia expand. Unpredictable points attached to SCS, Taiwan, Ukraine nuclear buildup, restricting global crisis. Includes warming. We are stopping warming now. That's copper 3.8. We're not targeting 1.5 Celsius or balloon to avoid climate change. Emission must drop 7.6% per year. Nuclear grid scale up. That's REM 22. Solar wind renewable putting problems due to resource limits. Nuclear technology provide 9,000 years of energy. Legacy waste becomes fuel. 3 links. 1. Either installs better than renewables. Verse 24. Nuclear sphere materials and land and wind and solar upon cost and difficult government teach children high cost or complements renewables. Copper to 11. Stop by climate change. Nuclear power provides consistent electricity. Wind and solar intermittent nuclear produced at full power. Crucial complements renewables. Solar wind challenges. There's an overcapacity price pressure swing demand that solves warming and 22. Renewable power not enough nuclear power to fill the gap between transition to reduce emissions and stable forming. Too much trade off with fossil fuels speed improves for 15. Nuclear power line 1972 1986 have electrical output. Even nuclear emissions less by 75%. Most rapid installation in history. Fossil plants drop 40%, but now with renewables beginning 22. Renewables not displace fossil fuels. Infrastructure path to bed and steam. Insulating fossil fuels for competition. Fossil fuels cause warming. CSRO no. CSRI no date. Fossil fuels make targeted contribution to climate change. 90% of emissions from burning is committed probable extinction threat in 19. Nuclear weapons based on tricky science or level model given already detonated. Nuclear devices nuclear wars on extinction about warming is 3. Current international competition. That's Rinsky 21. American policy drive climate progress spring. Reciprocal form reduction different evolution. United States reduced result in coordinated nations to reduce emissions by 6 tons. Warming turns all impacts carried into 22. Global warming results in a possible disaster catastrophic unit monocycle player role in every stage of tipping points where small rise in temperature result in big changes in climate triggering aggregate cause 8 degrees Celsius. The warming rate trigger catastrophic race wars, pandemics, crop failures, lack of water, and scalar pace 23. Every point of year warming causes 100 million deaths. Probability for extinction swamps time frame the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs the 100 years later. It wouldn't have made a difference assuming their arguments have 100% probability requires intervention. Their case. AI bubble first. 1. No impact. Democratic countries don't turn to war to the strife because war is negatively perceived by the public, so politicians will lose popularity. And think about how mad people would be if they go to war while the economy was bad. It looks like the government doesn't care about domestic, which is an incentive killer that thumps their argument, and their examples of authoritarian countries on politics. 1. Nuclear lobbying overwhelms this outweighs anyone against government spending because lobbyists control their election outcomes and beat them off, which can overcome personal beliefs that means lobbying fails, and Republicans can still do the bill because they new ties with lobbyists of Westbrook 25. The rise of green lobbying marches shifted power traditions dominated by fossil fuels, lobbying policy and demands of various groups. 2. No backlash from oil companies because they'll just diversify instead its most profitable since they're gonna run out of fossil fuels and don't want to flood the market with cheap products, so green paradox is wrong. That's day 20. Nuclear energy draws investment from oil and fusion have the same supply chain operation features fossil fuel alongside nuclear. 3. It won't pass. Reps have slim majorities. This is damning. Their union is a day later, sure, but it can't change that fast. We indict their warrants to Buster 2 days ago. Republicans struggling to pass taxes that deadline the pushback process solved. Congress hasn't made headway. House and Senate only difference having no consent over tax cuts. With temporary permanent Republican majority is race within. Skip the next part. 5. Is the Republicans hate government spending so much they just won't pass the budget reconciliation bill because their evidence concedes that it adds $5.7 trillion to debt and doesn't plan to tax taxes.
Do you mind sending the composition?
That was off the flow. I'll send it. Yes. Well, I read everything on my case. I'll just mark the rebuttal part. Is that fine? if you have a float, strike it off. I didn't say it. Cross. First question, sir.
Can you outline which affirmative scenarios are solvable on perception and not material implementation?
Wait, one more time.
Which affirmative scenarios are perception solvencies, not implementation solvencies?
I'm not gonna lie, I think perception is probably the worst argument debaters have ever come up with. I don't know what perception means. I don't know what that means in the context of our arguments.
So, do all of your arguments require reactors to be built?
No. I'll take a question.
Which ones don't?
Well, there's two.
Explain.
So big. Okay. I'll take a question. You can
You
ask.
explain.
Okay. Umbrella doesn't. Umbrella doesn't. We read that we increase the ability to produce plutonium, which is just a byproduct of waste. So I don't think you need to build the entirety of the reactor. Warming.
Wait,
Warming.
Explain how that argument is perceptual. If we have to build facilities that refine
Actually, no.
waste.
I guess umbrella's not.
Okay,
Warming.
umbrella's not
Warming is.
perceptual. Why?
Again, like I think. Wait, you just asked if it was perceptual,
Yeah,
and I said
why
no. Why so?
Yeah, why so? is
Wait,
warming
okay, I'm just gonna explain why warming is, and then I'm gonna take a question. Warming is perceptual, it spurs competition, other countries wanna follow the US. Your case. Let's talk about politics. What are all the reasons why the budget reconciliation bill won't pass? Or at least that's outlined in your case.
Yeah, Republicans dislike spending.
Okay, cool.
They dislike the special treatment of the nuclear industry.
Okay.
They just did it, so a period of horse trading will begin now, and
What is
Republicans.
horse trading?
Like the horse trading to debate over priorities within the bill. And so, yeah, because we just passed fiscal spending in order to invest in things like renewables, then they don't want that.
So just to clarify, government spending, pay special treatment, horses, and what was the last one? Horse trading?
The recency of the bill.
Is that the same thing as horse trading? They debated about it?
Also, that extreme Republicans will feel left
It's the
behind.
same thing. Is horse trading and they just debated it the same thing?
No, because horse trading is about the period of negotiations that is set to begin over the bill. The past spending is a reason why Republicans, who are traditionally in the nuclear lobby's hands, hate this new bill. And then also, it makes Trump's base feel that they've been left behind because bipartisanship is irrelevant for this bill because reconciliation will pass with just 2 votes. But if 2 votes leave, sorry, 53, but if 2 votes leave, that means it won't pass. So extreme ones that depend on the gas lobby will collapse the bill.
Yeah.
Let's go back to warming. Can you explain the competition argument and why that's perceptual? Like if I build a nuclear reactor and it takes too long or it fails, what is the competition if the industry is unprofitable?
Wait, so I told you the argument was perceptual. You said if we build it, then it fails, then why is it perceptual? But perceptual would imply it happens before it gets built. I don't understand the question.
Yeah, so I'm asking you that if the industry fails or the industry
Wait, exactly,
or the
that's not
industry
perception,
or the
though.
industry does not build a reactor at
That's
all.
also not perception. Like I
If
don't
the industry
understand
doesn't
the question.
build a reactor at all, that's definitionally
Wait.
perceptual. Can you explain why companies would rush to buy in?
Because it seems as a major announcement of the bill, the United States is making critical commitments or evidence that historically that fuels 6 ton reductions in carbon emissions.
The order is going to start on the neck and then the end.
Yeah. Okay, everyone good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll start air bubble pulse. starting on that. Sound good?
AI, they say war will not occur on a whim due to economic decline, but econ is linked globally, so it still triggers war, and it assumes Trump is rational. Our evidence is statistical as well, plus the public hates economic decline, so it forces the leader's hand. That was all conceded. One teacher preferred over their blippy analytics. On politics first, nuclear lobbying overwhelmed. It is irrelevant and power stack. They have conceded all the other links into politics as well, and the oil lobby still dominate the field, regardless of whether or not nuclear lobbying is increasing now. The point, they say there's no backlash, but their evidence only as these 3 oil companies. You can contemplate the answers above, those still apply. The third point, they say there are numerous numbers, but their evidence is snapshot, which our evidence is that it's not just more recent. It says the Republicans will successfully decrease their deficit, which resolve taxes for. All evidence says they are working through issues which guarantees a pass before Memorial Day. Trump has the party in law. This was all carded evidence. Their evidence is terrible. Next, they say that if it's true the government hates spending so much they won't just pass the budget reconciliation deal. No, our evidence posted and says that it passes through now. Now, third case. First, nuclear umbrella. Why do you see Livermore concedes the act cannot solve? We have engineered below and green, and domestic nuclear energy doesn't increase understanding of plutonium since it's a byproduct of production, which is not inherent to the average, meaning they cannot solve. Secondly, the link is wrong in Sanctuary Tech, Drama 17. The link between overstated countries hard to build over the nuclear energy sector, and sometimes we're energy programs supplies require a state countries are wary of making destruction in risk. And Matt doesn't adopt the nuclear use. China use nuclear weapons as part of conventional arsenal, which means they are adversely using. And if the average of 2 countries would not deliberate because it causes war, and there's no impact in true and counterbalancing solves. Rule 18. The world already survived actually. Myself and among nuclear weapons are propagating the process, not even the evidence says would anybody care? British and French arms will double is more likely a nuclear things to cause rivals join together just as countries respond to stand and there are so many all causes we've interested in and purple below their arguments aren't done. Now on warming, the terms of this argument is incoherent. They've isolated things like water, coffee, etc. But I've not isolated those in nuclear war, and the cascades are solved by things like innovation from carbon capture. Additionally, vertical ramp up production to lower prices and remove demand side constraints. Real quick, I'll answer their cost application from our case. Their background is wrong since companies are incentivized to get rid of stranded assets ASAP, which proves the link true. Lazaro 15. Political and economic institutions that under possible production use and increase it. There are demand side policy eroded economic benefits contribute reduce domestic demand produces by new markets and nationally accelerate production and near-term fossil fuels will maximize profit by seeing up produce products and induce greater demand, accelerate production and consumption of fossil fuels. And that loss in warming below 15 and the increased carbon emissions resulting from effects on these positive feedback effects. These are irreversible interactions between oil exporters and importers. Delay the intervention of systems by supplying more oil and lowering the price. Incentives are weakened, especially if required investments are costing and take time. And their framing issues real world change and always be conspired as an illustrator. Socket 20. Calling climate change accidentals misleading the narrative. Reinforcing that it's too late to do anything. Best to push political anxiety or inaction. And even if we cut all emissions immediately, it is far too late. KRS 24. 90% of the extra energy from warming is taken up by oceans. It can take 1,000 years for heat to mix this thermal like. Even if we eliminate all emissions for hundreds of years, oceans will heating ice sheets will continue to melt while temperature drop only slightly. We'll answer the probability argument right now. Winning an extinction scenario that happens first, or an independent Tversky's argument means there is no astronomy. Life is valuable, so we ought to preserve it as long as possible. If best case, in the process of stopping extinction, the act causes it to happen quicker, you should vote neg. The probability weighing it is incoherent and indifferential, as everyone has different perceptions of what is possible, so you should default the time frame. Next, no warming impact. Inflation, adaptation, and war terms. The Young 25. Temperature increases common natural variability, human sea increase in probability, morality, decrease 98% world, prevent deaths from climate through weather, health driven by fossil fuels, damage capacity, recover stats, indicate green planet, the UN world from 2100 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, no case, accidental humans adapted and thriving extremes, worse than pessimistic scenario, the tipping point's likelihood low, fossil fuels not only cost climate caused by nuclear war, and there's no warming impact. Inflation, adaptation, oh wait, sorry, I already read this part. Warming is survivable and net beneficial. Flow 23, 4 degrees, not existential. Sea levels rise slow, 140 years for every meter we can adapt, build infra. Extreme heat zones moving 20 kilometers each year. Humans live well under conditions while warming, alleviating suffering from cold ag effect is small 1% yield reduction. Farmers adapt costs, along to minimize biodiversity, migration, habitats, refugees, seeds, eggs, and DNA.
Anything else you want me to cover?
Okay, cool. Now I guess we'll go to the explanations on the C3. Trump is sabotaging himself now. Doge is gutting the LPO and Samuel resigning to the point of incapacity. This office is purely essential for product development. It oversees the operation, provides long-term financing, and offers necessary technical assistance with navigating regulatory barriers. That was the continued first piece of evidence on the C3. Mayor says this blows Trump's window of opportunity for polarization, causing soaring on nuclear.
Wait, I'm gonna take flex. What were the analytics on that? What were the analytics on warming?
On what?
On warming. Were there any analytics during the combined?
The main argument, you mean?
Okay, so there was an only level of fun.
15. We'll take more starting now.
Okay, let me send them. It should just be like one. Okay, it might be two emails. Sorry. I can resend. Okay. I'll just resend one email with like. There should be a server text side. Yeah. I can send it up. It'll be down the app. Nothing else. And we're not, right? Yeah. Honestly, when we can see the app can't solve, they can see the uniqueness right now that our needs are modernized. That takes out their impact scenario because it says that the ability to modernize needs, they can see we can't physically do it because we don't have plutonium. They don't have impact uniqueness, we cannot use their impact on politics, on climate. Okay. Their first response that firms will ramp up production, lower prices. No, they could be responsible for more monster bottle, which also applies here that oil companies are more likely to diversify into nuclear energy itself because if they ramp up production, then oil becomes really cheap, so it's less profitable out there. Incentivized to diversify, which means they won't ramp up production. And if this were true, they would already be doing right now because they want to profit maximize. So probably should be doing real profits that they don't have the capability to do it. They say that walks on more movie, taking out the link, and they can see uniqueness that climate change is on path right now. We're going to try or die. They say our framing choose real world change. No, our framing is good because it says we can solve climate change, so we should act right now. We should prompt more progress. You can turn this as a pre-fiat term because their rhetoric is bad and their rhetoric that we shouldn't do anything because climate change doesn't cause extinction is bad, because that probably justifies not doing anything, which means we have more emissions that are bad with the pre-fiat reasons to vote for us. They say even if we cut all emissions right now, there's a thermal lag. This argument doesn't make sense because it's not just about the rising heat temperatures, it's that the frequency of storms also increase, which causes resource source, and they can see our evidence that in scale for every 1 degree increase in rise causes 150 million deaths. They say no warming impact, but they can see our evidence that every massive change that has been because of climate change. So climate change does have an impact. Their argument says temperatures are increasing, but this is not the only warning. Also, like climate change also gives rise to new diseases like pandemics, which are isolated in the evidence, which they specifically need to respond to, and it doesn't account for the massive emissions that can happen in the long term. Okay. Last response they give you is that we were able to mitigate it. One, just as there's a potential that the potential that could happen now that we've proven technology too. It's not accessible to developing countries. We still have an impact of people dying in the developing world. It's like 150 million people. The reason why it's like because this technology is expensive, which is why climate change disproportionately has a greater effect on them. And they say 4 degrees do not pose an extra their argument all that the warming itself is bad about the climate change. It's not just like the increase in temperatures all causes like the rise of pandemics. And on top of that, even just like a 0.1 degree Celsius causes 150 million people to die. So even if we don't have a 4 degree Celsius, we still have an impact. Their case. On the AI bubble, really over the impact defense is mishandled. They just say they should politicians don't care if the public hates econ decline, but this is so logical. Why would they turn to war if the public also hates it? There are a million other things they could do. I.e., they could invest in welfare subsidies, all of which make the people more happy or try to fix the economy, which is the reason why the economy doesn't lead to war and probably makes war less likely because of the fact that you're in economic crisis, you don't have the capabilities to go to war, which is probably a good thing. On the link proper one, their chance 25 evidence says that even if AI was working in the past, it's going down now, which means the decline is inevitable too. Bubble theory always pop.com, Xbox stocks, etc., which means it'll inevitably happen due to other things preferred on peer 3 unique evidence says that AI will probably come better and stable in the future because quote someone will come along and do it, not that it is now for Mana says that hypocycles are inevitable, which aids on nuclear lobbies and we can see the above response that bubbles will pop out and there are reasons why economic recession goes worldwide. On link about politics, one, we will go for the first response that there's no oil backlash because they will just diversify to nuclear energy. That is the response I've already extended. Second thing we'll go for is that nuclear lobbying is increasing right now. They've just said oil lobby still dominate. No, our evidence is a projected trend, which means that nuclear lobbying rises, then we don't have to go to like the oil lobbies themselves, which means politicians don't actually face backlash. And third, we'll go for the warrant that the bill won't pass. They just say nuclear doesn't pass now, but they can see the warrant that if they're correct that the governments don't want to, the Republicans don't want to help them, then that's a bad thing because the bill itself is spending in itself. Okay. On implementation, one, they are all evidences in the context of the status quo. If the government does a massive investment in nuclear energy, they have an incentive to make sure it works. Otherwise, they look bad and solve all of the reasons why Trump sabotaged war injunctions. They say SMR failed. Meanwhile, it can happen in 12 months, and this is definitely not terminal because we have 40 reactors that are active in the US right now, which means nuclear energy can work. They say injunctions. No, one president saw hands to giving more money to officers because we can just deal with the lawsuits. They say Texas v. NRC, but they can see evidence from RTs and we recycle waste between storing down a problem. They say incentive, but the incentive response doesn't matter because if the project does not complete, you will not get contracts in the future and going to prison check back for their evidence and the propaganda argument is not implicated to why nuclear would fail. It doesn't matter if people believe in propaganda.
Let's talk about the politics argument. So you say that the bill will not pass because they don't want to increase spending. Why is that relevant if the bill does not increase the deficit?
Wait, we've read evidence that it does increase because we do tax cuts, which is just another form of government spending. We decrease the amount of
Those are not the same.
But we've read evidence that it would increase the deficit, and then your
Can you read me a line
your
that
frontline
says-
rebuttal is
Can you
that
read me
it
a line
passes
for
now.
evidence that says it would increase?
I think I got disconnected from you now. Here we go. The plan cut taxes at $5.7 trillion to debt. That's what that's
Which part am I looking at?
BBC 25. Now I'm gonna say good question. Do you think climate change is real, or does it have an impact on people?
Yes.
Okay, you can take question.
Sure. Let's talk about the rhetoric argument.
Yeah.
So why is our rhetoric harmful?
Because your rhetoric that climate change is not existential, he prioritizes climate change and like policy makers the average person. It means they're probably less likely.
Okay, cool. So why does it say it's not existential? Why does it say that warming is not existential? Because of intervening actors. Does not that prove that action is necessary to avoid the warming argument?
Yeah, I'm confused, right? Like, the fact that people believe that intervening actors will solve probably justifies not doing things. But if people realize that there are no intervening actors and that each individual person is responsible for the emissions of their personal carbon footprint, then that prompts more action. I'm gonna take a question.
Yeah.
On politics, can you explain your impact scenario?
The impact scenario is specific to the DID. The argument is that unless we pass, if we do another CR, it would be the first time in all of history where we have a full continued resolution, which signals to our adversaries, China, Russia, etc., that we would not be able to modernize our system. Our evidence is
Okay, so
specific to
contingent on
conventional
modernizing,
capabilities and
right?
says that the modernization is enough alone to be able to show China and Russia that we have the resolve. It is also escalatory fast. You can see the evidence from the case. It specifically says that China does not draw a fine line between conventional and
Can I ask
nuclear.
clarifying? It's contingent on modernization.
What?
your argument or impact?
No, it's not. Just that
Your
just that the
explanation
fact-
of your argument was that we modernize.
No, it's that we wouldn't have another year of a continued resolution.
Wait, but I just asked you to explain
It is a
the impact scenario, and
perceptual
you're
link.
like,
It is a perceptual
Wait,
link.
yeah,
Our
but-
argument is not that we would have to modernize immediately, but rather the fact that we would not, 100% certainty, would not be able to modernize the military if we passed a continued resolution.
Nah,
Our argument is
If
that
you continue
our
to
argument
say
is
we
again,
can't
our argument also the uniqueness we did impress and Daniel will do more in some as well. But the argument we've made is it is irrelevant whether or not we have the capabilities to modernize completely 100%. We've conceded that at the very least we can modernize our military some percent, and that alone is sufficient because passing
Wait,
the
read
continued
the line
resolution
that says
is what triggers the perceptual link because China and Russia know that we would not be able to modernize the match
Can you
capabilities.
read me a line that says just doing it a little bit enough?
What?
Can you read me a line from the evidence that says doing it a little bit enough? That's awesome.
We'll take pubs now.
The order will start first on bubble, and then we'll just our case, and then wing, and then your case. Yep. Actually, wait. Let me settle a voter first. It'll be voter, our case, your case. Ready?
Yeah.
On the climate voter 1, and we have won that warming is not existential because of intervening actors. There is no impact to the pre-fiat argument because it demonstrates that it is not affecting real-world perception. Scientific analysts say mortality is down 98%. We've cited authors that warming is not existential, and governments are acting now, meaning belief that climate is not existential doesn't hold progress. 2, no reason why this is drop the debater. It moves time for substance. Gut check this. Both sides didn't allocate any time, and they still conceded the impact even about adaptation and green transition now, and that the 4 degrees has not been essential for 40 years because adaptation and new green technology was moves their solvency, and they didn't extend their arguments in the second rebuttal, which means they don't have any case offense. On the bubble, there will be no recession. Their evidence says we are controlling inflation. It's a minuscule chance. I'll take the impact because what for solved recession? On politics, extended policy, they've totally conceded that currently the budget reconciliation measure will pass now. However, as soon as you affirm, it means that it shows negative favorability. Our argument is not at all about lobbying. Rather, it is that Trump becomes lefty. Trump, the extreme Republicans, we feel that they have been left behind, and also it means that horse trading cannot occur. There are blocks in the government that prevent the reconciliation from going through, which prevents the renewal of the STARTS agreement, which re-innovates our defense industrial base and deters China. Their argument was about nuclear not working, but our argument starts about deterring Chinese conventional capabilities, which has nothing to do with American nuclear. It is that China will strike first, which causes a nuclear war by drawing in existential actors and causing a great power war that will kill us with bioweapons, not necessarily American nuclear. The first thing they say is that there will be diversification, but that is irrelevant. There are other causes. Our argument is not at all about that, and it is about Republican infighting. They say lobbying right now. Again, it is not our argument, and that also name drops natural gas as the highest thing. They say spending bill. They've conceded the uniqueness evidence that says that their evidence is number 1, a snapshot, but 2, specifically that will reduce, not increase the deficit. So this argument is being overcome. And the post-date on the plutonium argument, no, our indict says that they didn't have the tech for plutonium, but that doesn't answer our argument of China first striking due to conventional efforts. It was America, not China. The way debate dropped in rebuttal was winning an existential scenario that happens first, or an independent turns case argument means no absolutely life is value, so we often preserve it. Life matters as long as possible. The best case in the process of stopping extinction, the process to happen quicker, vote negative, close chart, 9 drop. That was probability weight. It is interventions as everyone has different perceptions of what's possible, so default to time frame. The evidence is very explicit. It says that as soon as you affirm, and it means that that's perception has never happened before, that we have not renewed our defense industrial base to catch up with inflation. It means that small conflicts will instantly escalate to nuclear. It means that we cannot solve warming because there are small conflicts. It is higher on the priority table for every single policymaker because even a small conflict is higher than climate change that they believe will happen in the next 2 decades versus a conflict that escalates immediately and link turns the affirmative instantly. And the time frame, the implementation argument. Trump is sabotaging himself, Doge is gutting the LPO and staff are resigning to the point of incapacity. This office is purely essential for project development. They've conceded that funding is irrelevant because they conceded that all unique expertise do not want to come back. Funding is irrelevant for this argument to get increased funding one time, but the things that manage the project down the line are dismantled. Myers says this blows Trump's window of opportunity before polarization, causes souring on nuclear. They've also conceded that the people would just retire. All of these arguments have not been responded. They say the government would look bad, but this is a measure that Trump is undertaking during the status quo. All the efforts point to Trump, making it harder for nuclear, which means that it cannot solve climate change and the warming gap. Don't believe the warming argument. They conceded that perception is irrelevant because the technology has to work and be well regulated and permitted for it to innovate attack rates. They conceded all of the arguments. They said there's potential to decrease that. They conceded adaptation and emissions will increase because it takes so long.
Okay, we have 209 left. We'll take prep starting now. now. That was 24. The 209 minus 24 is 145. Flex now.
Well, how did you get around the no impact uniqueness because you can't modernize?
The argument was specifically about American plutonium technology in 07. I said there's other materials we can use for reactors, and I also said that
Okay, that's fine.
evidence is only about America. China our impact is about China fighting escalating small conventional conflicts.
Okay, 145 times 19 is what? 126. Prep starting.
Wait, I thought you said.
What's that? Okay, 126. Prep starting.
Wait, can I take more steps? What is the farm bill itself?
Well, one.
Why are we always pausing?
Yeah, just keep going. Wait, okay. What does the farm bill itself do?
Farm bill?
Yeah. Or like, what is this bill that you pass?
It's a continuing resolution that increases the government budget.
Yeah, but what does the money go to in your life?
A variety of
Like
different
what?
things. The military.
Okay.
Okay, 11 left. That's 3 seconds. Okay. Order is aft, top, down. Weighing, neck case. Michael. Uniqueness of umbrellas was conceded, which takes out their second contention on the military. You conceded that the nukes are degrading right now, and the plutonium is the only thing they solved. You say other materials have not read evidence for this and explain how they solved. They have plutonium core, so what other material would solve? Takes out your C2 because nuclear weapons are the best thing in order to reassure other allies have a stronger military. Other technologies doing the same because nuclear is the only thing that creates mutually assured destruction, which is the greatest deterrence against war possible. Now, going for the condition 2. We're not in pots to be climate targets now, but affirming can scale up by recycling waste and increasing nuclear power. Otherwise, warming is a scalar impact that gives millions of people turn all other impacts because of knock-on effects. I'll extend the link. Going for the second link that trades off with fossil fuels, empirically proven by Sweden, who got emissions by 75% in fossil fuels are the biggest driver of emission. They say we didn't extend case in second rebuttal, but it was extended by a frontlining. The argument was pretty clear. They go for 2 arguments. They say mitigation. One can say that we are doing mitigation right now. That was their evidence. It's only future, like it always says it could happen. Second case, the developing countries don't have the money for mitigation, which means we still have offense off of them. It's 150 million people at the minimum. They say that it takes too long. We're not going for time frame, and they've conceded that it independently has knock-on effects and is a scalar argument, i.e. triggers other things like pandemics and resource wars, which means that we still have an impact because we're not going for extinction and not going for time frame. The weight. I'll do our weight first. One probability is not subjective. This is empirical studies. We've read evidence considering the case that climate change is responsible for every mass extinction event in history. Even if their strength of link is 100%, their real-world probability is not 100%, which was a conceded weighing card out of case. We haven't seen nuke war, but climate change is hurting people right now. Probability trumps magnitude and time frame because voting on high magnitude impacts causes policy paralysis. Does not politics have to deal with infinite extinction scenarios, so we can't do anything. Second, climate change links to war globally, spreads around the world. You drop. There's a scalar argument, and that every minute we wait is an increased chance of all those knock-on effects outweighs magnitude because it creates multiple hotspots around the world because countries have to fight for things like resources and resource wars, and also launch nukes or get in a conflict as a result. Used bioweapons time frame is not absolute. It's not 100%. That's an intervention to assume time frame, especially because bioweapons don't cause extinction immediately. It's not nuclear weapons, and they have not explained why they caused extinction in the last speech. Check their own doc. I'll handle their way. We're not going for time frame. We already explained what we applied. Time frame flipping Charter also does not matter because we did not read Charter. And we also have a scalar impact that gets worse every single day, which links to their arguments. They say perception. We're not going for protection either. All of their weighing is pointless. Case. The C3. One, they've conceded from our, okay, actually, I already did that. One, they've conceded the warrant why the bill won't fully pass on their second contention on politics. They say that our argument's a snapshot. No, the evidence indicates that Republicans, or that the House only wants like 5 million, and the Senate wants to cut 1.6 trillion, which is a massive difference. That's not a snapshot. They don't agree on how much money has to be cut, which means it will not pass. It's not a snapshot, which will only frontline on the second contention. They've conceded that there would be no backlash on their third argument, because they've conceded on the contention too. The nuclear lobbying will overwhelm everything else. That was a dropped argument. They only frontlined it on their C2. Nuclear lobbying on their contention too. Okay, nuclear lobbying on contention 2 means it overrode the link on C3 because none of their arguments trigger. Their C3, they conceded that Trump would not let nuclear fail because he would look back and see that he's made a massive investment, and that investment failed, it would look bad for him as a president. Also conceded that the fact that we are building 40 reactors right now, and their arguments haven't triggered should mean that appears this argument crossed by the probability rank here. I know the extension on C2 was not on C3, but they only went front lines there and not on their C3. That's game.
Alright.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your climate impact. You've asserted that our evidence is about dropping 98% hypothetically. Can you read any place in our evidence that says that?
But I don't think it matters.
It matters a lot because that's the only front line to your impact.
Yeah, it was to developing countries can't afford the technology.
It includes developing countries. Can you just find me the line? Because one is better than none, right? So find me the line that says
what do you mean one is better? I'm like,
so if it allows us to get defense onto your impact, just please find me the line that says that our 98% evidence is a projection.
Daniel, you can win impact defense. We're just saying 0.15 or 0.1 degrees increase in Celsius kills 150 million people. And even if our impact is small, we will go for the more probable matters more.
I know
so
that,
I'm confused at what you're getting at. We still this is not a terminal implication.
I know that you have got it for knock-on effects, which is why I'm trying to get to our evidence, which says specifically mortality from knock-on effects. Hurricanes, floods, droughts, and wildfires has decreased by 98%.
Quote, the second aspect relates to heat and cold extremes. An unambiguous consequence of global warming is more frequent heat extremes coupled with less frequent cold extremes. It is well known that mortality is substantially greater for cold than to extreme heat. Consequently, it keeps saying...
I don't know what you're reading.
Wait, a line from your evidence. You asked me to read one. It just says that there's an unintended effect of warming that you're out of...
98% impact is hypothetical.
Well, I'm just, like, okay. This doesn't matter, right?
It is conceded impact defense that knock-on effects are mitigated,
but
which
the
takes
impact
out your
defense is
wing
not
and your
terminal.
impact extinction will outweigh
The only way the impact defense is terminal is if you deny climate change is real. Even if we win a small impact on climate change, our wing in summary will be that probability outweighs magnitude. Okay, that's fine. Can we take a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of your impact evidence and internal link evidence is in the context of modernizing nuclear weapons. We can read mine. So how do you get around that with your frontline evidence?
Our argument was that it is not about
But I'm asking about your evidence, though.
No, our evidence says that bioterror causes extinction. Claire says numerous weapons would be used.
Yeah, but all your internal link evidence that you solved is in the context of modernizing nuke.
Straight up, I'm going to be honest, not only are you losing this debate, you've just conceded the link turn that as soon as conflicts start, people don't focus on climate.
Right, but like that's fine. Like not focusing on
That's
we
just
still
like,
have the reactors though.
It just means your evidence, your case is finished. Like
No, it's not.
like it's just done. Like you not
Wait,
only
that doesn't
conceded
mean-
impact
wait,
defense,
even if
you
people don't
conceded
focus
that there
on-
will be small-scale conventional conflicts that do not even have to be nuclear. We could have no nukes and it would still outweigh your
Wait,
argument.
that doesn't matter. Even if people aren't focusing on climate change, if we have the nuclear reactors which are intrinsically clean, then that means the energy we are producing is still clean. You've not implicated to our link. Not focusing on climate change is not a terminal link in that turns our argument.
I don't really know what that means.
Wait, like even if we don't care about solving the climate, if everything we do is inherently clean because it's powered by clean
It
energy,
means that we wouldn't
then
be
we still
able to
reduce
run them
emissions.
well. It means that renewables that exist to supplant those things would fail.
But we're saying renewables don't matter. We're saying nuclear energy solves climate change.
I'm saying that a war would take up priorities, it destroys construction times, the agenda just gets awful.
None of that was in summary.
It was literally all in summary that it distracts us from the attention. Yeah, 10 seconds starting now. Okay. The order is the neg and then the app. Everyone ready?
Going for for politics. Unique status from yesterday says the budget is passed out. Republican Union could overcome opposition. Nuclear alienates Trump's base gas lobby and spending forces internal backlash. Another year, Dex, prevent innovation, bottlenecks, subtracts the table funding will cause the cost of America's conventional military innovation, which is what our impact says prevents nuclear war. They say we don't have enough plutonium. Look, we are agreeing that American nuclear capabilities are not up to shape. Our internal link is explicitly about conventional weapons, stopping small-scale conflicts that cause Chinese first race through the conventional nuclear symmetry. Conflict draws in great power which kills everyone through the bioweapons. The internal link was extended and dropped. Our argument occurs instantly. Next, the case proper. They say the bill will not pass. They have conceded our evidence that the deficit will remain static. In our evidence postings, conceded Trump spearheads efforts. Second, they say the nuclear lobby conference is irrelevant because they dropped the other links, Trump's base spending forces, etc. They say nuclear war creates bad, which stops the case, but they have dropped that it does not because China views nuclear weapons as part of its conventional arsenal, which means they are not adverse to using it. Next, we'll do the weighing debate here. First, the time frame weighing was cold conceded. The link instantly triggers where adversary that the military is incapable. The Bradley part says, quote, any delay in funding increases risk. Independently, the worst case is that our impacts trigger within the year. It takes years to develop nuclear reactors, much less for those to solve, and the nuclear area is already more than a year old, so be highly skeptical. Next, the time frame first link and they dropped was a link that causes war. It means that we can't solve climate change because people are distracted from the argument. You break the two links, it destroys the link because small scale conflicts also mean we're not focused on nuclear. They cannot continue something and continue nuclear penalties because wars will also emit. Next, they continue that you should break the class on time frame. If our Purex happens first, the Purex theirs should never happen to begin with. So you should break the two Purex between theirs and ours on time frame. Next, we'll answer the probability weighing. They dropped since rebuttal that probability weighing is a subject per person, so you should reject it because it is interventionist. The answers in second survey are new, so you should reject them. And us winning the dissent also means that we have 100% risk and probability. All conceded arguments. I literally do not know how you affirm in this debate. They have just dropped the politics dissent and we are winning time frame and winning debates. Next, their case, they have conceded there are no knock-on effects to our case. The impact defense's deaths are down by 98% from knock-on effects, and green tech means that impacts are overestimated, which proves that their arguments are not scalar because they're alternatives that solve, and they've dropped, as we mentioned, that Trump's employees destroying the LPO, which means they cannot continue projects. To begin with, the Doge argument is also really easy, but we do not have the material and manpower to even supply nuclear energy in the first place.
Good. Wait 4 seconds.
I'm going to start on the neg and then I'm going to go to the app. You can't vote Strike after final focus. They have conceded terminal defense that the nuclear energy lobby industry is growing, which means there's no backlash to doing the app because nuclear lobbies will just convince politicians that it's a good thing, so Republicans are always happy, which means you can still pass the bill that they talk about, so spending always goes through no matter what. Their extension of final focus was that there's internal backlash from Republicans, but they've conceded there would not be backlash because the nuclear lobby industry is growing, which is terminally conceding final focus, which zeroes any risk of the neg offense. Which means if we win any risk of solving for some amount of climate change, we win this debate. On our argument, they have conceded weakness that we are not about to solve climate change right now, but they have conceded that Fermi allows us to invest more in nuclear energy, which is a good thing because it's more power reliable and displaces fossil fuels, account for 90% of emissions, and they've conceded that for every 0.1 degrees increase in Celsius kills 150 million people here. First thing I will deal with is the impact defense. They say mortality decreased 98%, but final focus concedes the front line that developing countries don't have access to technology. This was a front line in Grand Crossfire, but not in final focus because we still have an impact to people itself. The second thing they apply is the Doge argument, but they have conceded the front line that Doge doesn't matter. Trump will do whatever he can to make sure that nuclear reactors work because he is staking his public credibility on it because he invested billions of dollars in it. This is proven by the fact that nuclear reactors can work because we have 40 of them right now in Scotia. Their response is not terminal. There's some risk that we solve some amount of climate change. On the weighing debate, we preempted their probability. We preempted their response to probability weighing since rebuttal. We've said our argument was historically true. There's no reason why empirics are subjective. It is whether it is true, false, whether or not an empiric happened, which means probability is not is subjective. And it's in case you can look at the doc. Here's the implication of probability. They continue you don't vote on high magnitude impact, which their impact in case is nuclear war. So they continue you don't vote on it because it causes policy paralysis. You can justify that anything leads to infinite nuclear war, which means politicians are paralyzed because they can never act, which is the reason as to why you prefer probability over magnitude. They continue our argument more probable. We are seeing people die from climate change. We are seeing people die from climate change right now. So if you just vote on 150 million people that are dying, the only thing I will have to handle then is that war means we would get distracted. But one, the front line that Trump will make sure worst takes it out. But two, distracted doesn't matter. If the energy is intrinsically clean, it means we can solve climate change itself. The way we do war is sustainable because we get our energy from nuclear, which means it wasn't implicated to our specifically link, which means it does not take out the app. You can vote on the straight case. There is conceded terminal defense and final focus.